The storm arrived without warning, the way trouble always did in the mountains. Sarah Bennett's headlights cut through falling snow as her sedan climbed the winding road into Black Ridge County, Colorado. 28 years old, 5'6", with brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and sharp green eyes that had seen too much too soon. Her knuckles were white on the steering wheel. She'd been driving for 6 hours straight, and every mile brought her closer to the place that had swallowed her sister whole. 6 months. 6 months since Amy's last text message. 6 months since a 19-year-old girl with her whole life ahead of her had vanished into mountain air like smoke. The police had stopped looking after 3 weeks. Case gone cold, they said. Probably ran off with a boyfriend. Girls that age, they do that sometimes. Sarah knew better. She was a detective with Denver PD, trained to see patterns where others saw coincidence, and Amy's disappearance fit a pattern. 11 women in 3 years, all aged 18 to 25, all last seen in or around Black Ridge County. The files were thin, the investigations thinner. Someone didn't want these cases solved. The sedan's tires crunched over fresh powder as she passed the weathered sign. Black Ridge County. Population 3,847. The town materialized through the snow like something from another era. Main Street stretched 2 blocks lined with buildings that remembered better days. A hardware store with a faded awning. A diner with flickering neon. One traffic light swaying in the wind, blinking yellow into the gathering dusk. Sarah had rented a cabin on the outskirts. Small, isolated. Perfect for someone who didn't want to be noticed. She pulled into the gravel drive as darkness settled over the mountains. The cabin was exactly as advertised, 1-bedroom wood-burning stove, no neighbors for half a mile. She grabbed her duffel bag from the trunk and paused. Something felt wrong. Not a sound, not a movement, just an instinct honed by 5 years of walking into dangerous situations. Sarah's hand moved to her hip, fingers brushing the Glock 19 concealed under her jacket. Nothing. Just wind through pine trees and the distant cry of a hawk. She went inside, locked the door, and stood in the center of the small living room, listening. The cabin smelled of old wood and dust, a couch sagging in the middle, a table with uneven legs. Through the window she could see her car already collecting snow. Sarah dropped her bag and pulled out her laptop. She had copies of everything. Police reports, missing persons files, her own notes compiled over months of obsessive research. She spread them across the table and began to review what she knew. Amy Bennett, 19. Disappeared March 15th while visiting a friend in Black Ridge. Last seen leaving a coffee shop on Main Street at 2:47 p.m. Security footage showed her walking toward the parking lot. Then nothing. Before Amy Melissa Cordova, 22. Vanished July 2nd, 2 years ago. Waitress, single mother, no family nearby. Before Melissa Katie Hernandez, 23. November 14th. Drifter passing through. Before Katie, 9 more names, 9 more faces, 9 more families with questions and no answers. Sarah's eyes burned. She'd read these files so many times, she'd memorized every detail, every gap, every place where an investigation should have gone deeper but didn't. Tomorrow she'd start asking questions. Tonight she needed rest. But sleep didn't come easy. Morning broke gray and cold. Sarah woke at 5:30, the habit of a cop's schedule too ingrained to break. She dressed in jeans, boots, and a heavy flannel shirt. Her detective's shield clipped to her belt but hidden under her jacket. She wasn't here officially. Denver PD had no jurisdiction in Black Ridge County. She was just a concerned sister, nothing more. The sheriff's department sat on a corner of Main Street, a squat brick building with bars on the windows and a flagpole out front. Sarah pushed through the glass door into stale warmth. A woman sat behind the reception desk, mid-50s, gray hair permed tight, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She looked up with the practiced smile of someone paid to be pleasant. "Help you?" "I'd like to speak with Sheriff Reed," Sarah said, "about a missing person case. He's in a meeting right now. Can I take a message?" "I'll wait." Sarah settled into a plastic chair and studied the room. Wanted posters on a corkboard, a water cooler in the corner. Through an interior window she could see the bullpen, 3 desks, 2 officers working at computers, and 1 man watching her. He was in his early 40s, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair combed back and a neatly trimmed beard. His uniform was crisp, his badge polished. He caught her looking and smiled. Not threatening, just aware. He stood and walked out into the reception area, extending his hand. "Deputy Logan Harlan, I don't think we've met." His grip was firm. His eyes were the color of stone. "Sarah Bennett, I'm here about my sister." Something flickered across his face, recognition maybe, or calculation. "Amy Bennett," he said. It wasn't a question. "You remember her case?" "I remember all of them." He gestured toward the hallway. "Sheriff's going to be another 20 minutes. Why don't we talk in the conference room?" Sarah followed him down a narrow corridor into a small room with a table and 4 chairs. Logan closed the door and sat across from her, his posture relaxed but alert. "I want to be straight with you," he said. "We did everything we could for Amy. Searched for 3 weeks, interviewed everyone who saw her that day, checked traffic cameras, cell phone records, credit card activity, nothing." 11 women, Sarah said quietly, "in 3 years. Logan's expression didn't change. "You've done your homework." "I'm a detective. Denver PD." "I know." That stopped her. "You checked up on me. Small town. Strange car shows up, I make it my business to know who's driving." He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Look, I understand what you're going through, I really do, but sometimes people just disappear. They leave. They don't want to be found. Amy wouldn't do that. With respect, Ms. Bennett, you'd be surprised what people are capable of." Sarah held his gaze. "Then let me see the case file." "That's up to Sheriff Reed." "Then I'll talk to Sheriff Reed." Logan stood. "He'll be out in 10 minutes. Wait here." He left, closing the door behind him. Sarah sat alone in the conference room, her detective's instincts firing. Something about Logan Harlan bothered her. Too smooth, too helpful, too practiced. She pulled out her phone and took a photo of the room, the table, the chairs, the 2-way mirror on the far wall that she was certain someone was watching through. 15 minutes later, Sheriff Thomas Reed walked in. He was 58 with a weathered face and a thick gray mustache. His uniform stretched tight across a belly that spoke of too many years behind a desk. But his eyes were kind. "Ms. Bennett, I'm sorry to keep you waiting." He sat down heavily, a folder in his hands. Amy's case file. "I wish I had better news. I want to know what you're doing to find my sister." Reed opened the folder. "Everything we can, but I'll be honest with you, after 6 months, the likelihood of—" "Don't," Sarah said sharply. "Don't tell me the statistics. Don't tell me she's probably dead. Tell me what you're doing now." Reed sighed. "We follow up on every lead. We coordinate with state police. We keep the case active. 11 women, Sheriff. 11. I'm aware. And you don't think that's connected?" "We've looked for connections. We haven't found any." Sarah stood. "Then maybe you're not looking hard enough." She walked out before he could respond. The bar was called the Timber Lodge, a low building at the edge of town with a neon sign that buzzed and flickered. Sarah went there at dusk, needing to think, needing to be around people who might talk more freely than cops. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and old beer. A dozen patrons scattered among the tables, a jukebox playing something country and mournful. Behind the bar, a woman in her early 40s with sun-weathered skin and blonde hair streaked with early gray. She moved with the economy of someone who'd been doing this too long. Sarah took a stool at the bar. "What can I get you?" "Whiskey. Neat." The woman poured without comment and set the glass down. Sarah caught her name tag, Elena. "You're new," Elena said. It wasn't a question. "Just visiting." "Visiting in February must be important." Sarah took a sip. The whiskey burned. "I'm looking for someone." Elena's expression shifted. "Not much, just enough. Lot of people come through here looking for someone. Most don't find what they're hoping for." Before Sarah could respond, the door opened. Cold air rushed in along with a man and a dog. The man was tall, 6'1" maybe, broad shoulders but lean, the kind of build shaped by endurance rather than bulk. Dark hair cropped short in a military cut, a beard trimmed close shot through with gray at the temples. He wore a worn jacket and jeans work boots caked with mud. His eyes swept the room in a single practiced glance. Exits, threats, anomalies before settling on nothing in particular. The dog was a German shepherd, black and tan coat muzzle graying with age, amber eyes that missed nothing, a scar visible along its right flank, old and healed but prominent. The dog moved with a slight stiffness in its hind legs, an injury accommodated but never forgotten. They took a table in the corner. The man sat with his back to the wall. The dog lay at his feet, head up, alert. Elena grabbed a menu and walked over. Sarah watched the exchange. Brief, quiet. The man ordered food. Elena nodded and returned to the bar. "Who's that?" Sarah asked. Elena poured another drink for a regular down the bar before answering. "Marcus Reed. Moved here about a month ago." "Where from?" "Doesn't say. Keeps to himself." "Military." Elena glanced at Sarah with new interest. "You a cop?" "Something like that." "Then you've got good instincts. Navy SEAL, I think. Retired. Does odd jobs around town. Fixes things. Doesn't talk much." Elena's voice dropped. "But the way he moves, the way he watches, that man's seen things." Sarah studied Marcus Reed from across the room. He sat perfectly still, eating slowly, methodical. The dog Rex she'd heard Elena call him hadn't moved except to shift his gaze toward each person who entered. She was about to look away when the dog's head snapped toward her. Amber eyes locked onto green. Rex stared at her. Not threatening, not curious. Something else. Recognition, maybe, or assessment, Marcus noticed. He followed the dog's gaze to Sarah, and for a moment their eyes met. Sarah felt it like a physical thing, the weight of a man who'd learned to read danger in a glance, to measure threats in heartbeats. Then he looked away, went back to his meal. But Rex kept watching. Sarah left the bar at 8 p.m. and walked to her car through fresh snow. The parking lot was poorly lit, just a single street lamp casting yellow light through the flurries. She pulled out her keys and stopped. Someone had been near her car, footprints in the snow, too large to be hers, circling the vehicle. Stopping at the driver's side door, Sarah's hand went to her Glock. She approached, slowly scanning the lot. Empty, quiet, just wind and falling snow. She checked the door, locked, windows intact. She crouched and looked under the chassis. Her heart stopped. A small black box, no bigger than a deck of cards, attached to the undercarriage with a magnet. Red LED blinking softly. GPS tracker. Sarah's mind raced. Someone was following her. Someone knew she was here, knew she was asking questions. She straightened, fighting to keep her breathing steady. She couldn't remove it. Not yet. If they were watching, they'd know she found it. She got in the car and drove back to the cabin, eyes on the rearview mirror the entire way. Inside, Sarah locked every door and window. She pulled the curtains tight and sat at the table with her laptop, trying to think. The tracker meant someone in the department. Had to be. No one else knew she was here. She'd told Denver PD she was taking personal time. Told her captain she needed a week to deal with family issues. But somehow someone knew exactly what she was doing. Deputy Logan Harlan's face swam into her mind. Too helpful, too smooth, or maybe that was paranoia talking. Sarah opened her laptop and started searching. Logan Harlan, Black Ridge County Sheriff's Department. The results were glowing. 15 years of service. Commendations, community awards, photos of him at charity events shaking hands with the mayor, coaching Little League. A model officer. But Sarah had learned long ago that the best predators wore the best masks. She kept digging, cross-referenced the missing women's cases with duty rosters. Logan had been on duty for 8 of the 11 disappearances. Not conclusive, but notable. A knock at the door made her jump. Sarah grabbed her gun and moved to the window, peering through a gap in the curtains. A truck sat in the driveway, dented, old, the engine still ticking as it cooled. Marcus Reed stood on her porch, hands visible, non-threatening. Rex sat beside him, ears forward. Sarah hesitated, then opened the door 6 inches, gun held low but ready. "Can I help you?" Marcus's eyes flicked to the weapon, then back to her face. No reaction, no fear. "Rex insisted," he said simply. "What?" "He wouldn't settle. Kept pulling toward your cabin. Dogs know things." Sarah looked at the German shepherd. Rex was staring at her car, a low rumble building in his chest. "He found something," Marcus said. "Didn't he?" Sarah's grip tightened on her Glock. "Why are you here?" "Because I recognize someone in trouble." Marcus's voice was quiet, steady. "And because that dog has saved my life more times than I can count. When he says something's wrong, I listen." For a long moment, Sarah stood in the doorway, weighing options. Then she made a decision. She opened the door. Inside, Marcus stood in the center of the small living room while Rex moved methodically through the cabin, sniffing, checking. Sarah holstered her weapon but kept her hand near it. "GPS tracker," she said. "Under my car." Marcus nodded slowly. "You a cop?" "Detective. Denver." "And you're here because—" "My sister disappeared 6 months ago, right here in Black Ridge County." Understanding crossed Marcus's face. "Amy Bennett." Sarah's eyes widened. "How do you know that name?" "Small town. People talk." Marcus moved to the window, checked the curtains. "You think she's connected to the others?" "I know she is. And someone doesn't want you finding out how. That's my working theory." Marcus turned to face her. In the lamplight, she could see the lines around his eyes, the scars on his knuckles, the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd seen combat up close. "I can help," he said. "Why would you do that?" "Because I came here to disappear, to find peace. But peace doesn't exist when evil operates in plain sight." His jaw tightened. "And because that dog chose you. Rex doesn't make mistakes about people." Sarah looked at the German shepherd. Rex had finished his sweep and now sat between her and Marcus, facing the door, on guard. "I don't need help," she said. "Yes, you do. You're alone, in a strange town, investigating people who've already proven they're willing to make problems disappear." Marcus's voice remained calm, factual. "You need someone who knows how to stay alive when the odds turn bad. And that's you, the mysterious ex-SEAL who doesn't talk about his past. I don't talk about it because talking doesn't change what happened." Marcus met her gaze. "But I know things, how to track, how to fight, how to survive. And more importantly, I know when to walk away from violence." "That's supposed to reassure me?" "It should. The most dangerous men aren't the ones who are quick to fight. They're the ones who know exactly what they're capable of and choose restraint." Sarah studied him. Everything in her training said not to trust strangers. Don't involve civilians. Work through proper channels. But her sister was missing. 11 women were missing, and someone had already marked her as a target. "What's your play?" Marcus asked. Sarah moved to the table and opened her laptop. "I need to know who's dirty in that department. Logan Harlan is my primary suspect, but I can't prove anything. I need evidence, real evidence. You go after a deputy, you better have ironclad proof." "I know. And you go after him wrong, you end up like your sister." The words hit like a physical blow. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. Marcus continued, his voice gentler. "I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to keep you alive. These people have had years to perfect their system. They're careful. They're protected. And they will kill you if they think you're getting close. So what do you suggest? We watch. We learn. We gather evidence quietly." Marcus pulled out a chair and sat. "You're the detective. You know investigations. I know tactics. Between the two of us, maybe we can find what everyone else missed." Sarah wanted to say no, wanted to handle this herself, but survival instinct overruled pride. "Okay," she said, "but we do this my way. No cowboy shit, no violence unless absolutely necessary." "Agreed. And if this goes sideways, you walk away. You don't go down for my fight." Marcus smiled faintly. "I've been fighting other people's battles my whole life. One more won't hurt." Rex woofed softly as if in agreement. Sarah almost laughed. Almost. Instead, she pulled out the files and spread them across the table. "Then let's get to work." They worked through the night. Sarah showed Marcus everything. The missing persons reports, the timelines, the gaps in the investigations, the pattern she'd identified. Marcus absorbed it all with the focus of someone trained to process information under pressure. He asked sharp questions, pointed out connections Sarah had missed. Together they built a clearer picture. All 11 women had disappeared within a 5-mile radius of Blackridge. All had been alone at the time. All had some connection to Route 47, a rural highway that cut through the mountains. Trafficking, Marcus said. Has to be. That's what I think. But where this county is 90% national forest, they could have a dozen locations. Then we narrow it down. What do all victims have in common besides location? Sarah scrolled through her notes. Age 18 to 25, no strong family connections, transient or low income. They're choosing targets no one will fight for. Marcus's expression darkened. Smart, sick but smart. And someone in law enforcement is either running it or covering for it. Logan, he's connected to most of the cases, but I can't prove he's dirty versus just incompetent. Marcus leaned back. We need to get inside his operation, see what he's hiding. That's called breaking and entering. That's called reconnaissance. Marcus, I'm not saying we do it tonight. I'm saying we prepare, we watch, we find his vulnerabilities. He tapped the map on her laptop. Where does he live? Sarah pulled up the county records. 10 miles north, owns 20 acres, house is set back from the road. Family and wife, 2 kids. Marcus nodded slowly. He's good at looking normal. That makes him more dangerous, not less. Rex suddenly stood, ears swiveling toward the door. Both Sarah and Marcus froze. Outside, a vehicle engine growled to life. Close. Too close. Marcus moved to the window in absolute silence. Sarah drew her Glock and joined him. Through a gap in the curtains, they could see a dark SUV idling at the end of her driveway. No lights. Just sitting there, engine running, exhaust ghosting into the cold night air. How long has it been there? Sarah whispered. Long enough to know we're both in here. The SUV's window rolled down. A flashlight beam swept across the cabin, slow and deliberate. Not searching, sending a message. We see you. Then the window rolled up and the SUV drove away. Sarah's heart hammered. Marcus remained perfectly still, watching until the taillights disappeared into the trees. They know, Sarah said. Yes. They know I'm investigating. They know you're helping me. Marcus turned to face her. Then we're past the point of subtlety. This just became a race. A race to what? To finding evidence before they decide we're too dangerous to leave breathing. Sarah swallowed hard. What do we do? Marcus glanced at Rex, then back to Sarah. His expression was calm, but his eyes held the hardness of someone who'd made impossible decisions in impossible situations. We move faster, he said. We take risks, and we trust no one in that department until we know who's clean. And if they're all dirty, then we go over their heads. FBI, state police, someone with jurisdiction and no stake in protecting Blackridge's dirty secrets. Sarah nodded, trying to steady her breathing. I have a contact, FBI agent who specializes in trafficking cases, Claire Donovan. I can reach out. Do it, but carefully. If there's a mole in federal law enforcement, we're finished. You really think this goes that high? 11 women over 3 years, that takes planning, resources, protection from people in power. Marcus's jaw set. This isn't one bad cop. This is a network. The weight of that statement settled over the room like snow. Sarah looked at her laptop, at the faces of 11 missing women staring back from the screen, at Amy's photo forever frozen at 19, smiling at a camera she'd never smile for again. We're going to find them, Sarah said quietly. Whatever it takes. Marcus didn't respond, but Rex moved closer to Sarah and rested his head against her leg, a gesture of solidarity, of trust. For the first time since arriving in Blackridge, Sarah didn't feel entirely alone. Dawn came gray and unwelcoming. Sarah woke on the couch, her neck stiff, her Glock still in her lap. Marcus sat at the table exactly where he'd been when she dozed off 3 hours ago. Rex was curled at his feet, but the dog's eyes opened the instant Sarah moved. "You didn't sleep," she said. "Someone had to keep watch." Sarah sat up, rubbing her face. "We can't keep going like this." "No, we need to force their hand." "How?" Marcus turned his laptop toward her. He'd been working. Maps, satellite images, property records. "Old Mill Road," he said, pointing to a remote section of Route 47. 3 miles of nothing. No houses, no businesses, but look at this. He zoomed in on a satellite image. Hidden among trees barely visible was a structure, long and low. "What is it?" "Old freight building. According to county records, it's been abandoned for 20 years. But look at the ground around it." Sarah leaned closer. Fresh tire tracks, multiple vehicles. "Someone's using it," she breathed. "Regularly. And it's remote enough that no one would notice comings and goings." "You think this is where they're holding them? Only one way to find out." Sarah stood, adrenaline cutting through her exhaustion. "We need to surveil it, see who comes and goes." "Agreed, but we do it smart. One of us watches while the other sleeps, shifts. We document everything, build a case. And then we bring in the FBI." Marcus nodded. "But Sarah, if we're right and if we get close, they will come for us." "I know. I mean, they will come to kill us, not arrest us, not scare us. Kill us." Sarah met his gaze. "I know." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Marcus stood. "Get some real sleep. I'll wake you in 4 hours. Tonight we start surveillance." Sarah wanted to argue, wanted to push forward immediately, but she was running on fumes, and Marcus was right. They needed to be sharp for what came next. She went into the bedroom and lay down, fully clothed, gun within reach. Sleep came fast and hard, and in her dreams Amy was calling her name. 4 hours of sleep felt like 4 minutes. Sarah woke to the smell of coffee and the low murmur of Marcus's voice. She sat up, disoriented, reaching for her weapon before her eyes fully opened. The bedroom was dim, late afternoon light filtering through cheap curtains. She found Marcus in the living room, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in clipped sentences. Rex lay near the door, head up, watchful. Marcus saw her and ended the call. "FBI contact." Sarah nodded, accepting the mug of coffee he offered. "Claire Donovan. She's heading a task force on human trafficking in the Mountain States. If anyone can help us, it's her." "You trust her?" "As much as I trust anyone right now." Sarah took a long drink, letting the caffeine hit her system. "What's the plan?" Marcus unfolded a topographical map across the table. "Old Mill Road. We go in on foot approach from the east through the forest. There's high ground here." He tapped a ridge overlooking the structure. "Good sight lines. We can watch the building without being seen." "When?" "Dusk. Another 2 hours. Gives us cover, but enough light to see." Sarah studied the map, her detective's mind already working through scenarios. "If they're moving women through there, they'll have security, cameras, guards." "Probably. Which is why we stay at distance. This is recon only. We observe, we document, we leave. And if we see something, if someone's in trouble..." Marcus's expression hardened. "Then we call Claire and pray she can move fast enough." The unspoken truth hung between them. If they acted too soon, they'd blow the entire investigation. If they waited too long, people died. Sarah set down her coffee. "I need to check in with Denver. Let them know I'm extending my leave. Keep it vague. I know the drill." She made the call from the bedroom, speaking to her captain in the calm, measured tones of someone taking personal time, not someone hunting a trafficking ring. The conversation lasted 5 minutes. Her captain didn't push. He knew about Amy. He understood. When she emerged, Marcus was checking equipment. Binoculars, a digital camera with a telephoto lens, a handheld radio, a first aid kit. "You came prepared," Sarah said. "Old habits." Marcus didn't look up. "SEAL teams taught me that the right equipment at the right time is the difference between mission success and body bags." "Comforting." "Honest." Sarah grabbed her own gear. Glock 19, 2 spare magazines, her phone fully charged, a tactical flashlight, She dressed in dark layers, thermal base fleece, waterproof shell. The temperature would drop below freezing once the sun set. Rex watched these preparations with the calm attention of a dog who'd been through this routine 1,000 times before. When Marcus strapped on his pack, the German shepherd stood ready. "He's coming," Sarah asked. "Rex has senses we don't. If there's danger, he'll know before we do." Sarah couldn't argue with that logic. They left the cabin at 4:30 as shadows began to stretch across the snow. Marcus drove his truck to a logging road 2 miles from their destination, then killed the engine. The silence of the forest pressed in around them. "From here we walk," Marcus said. The hike took 40 minutes. Marcus moved through the trees like a ghost, each step deliberate, minimal sound. Sarah followed, trying to match his rhythm. Rex ranged ahead, a dark shadow among darker trees, always circling back to check on them. The ridge came into view as the last light bled from the sky. Marcus raised a fist. "Stop!" They crouched behind a fallen log and looked down. The building sat in a small clearing, exactly as the satellite image had shown. Long and low corrugated metal walls painted a faded green. No windows. One large rolling door on the front, one regular door on the side. A gravel parking area empty except for a single white van. Lights burned inside, faint but visible through gaps in the metal panels. Marcus pulled out the binoculars and scanned methodically. Sarah did the same with her camera, zooming in, taking photos. "No external cameras that I can see," Marcus whispered. "But that doesn't mean they're not there. The van, work vehicle, could be legitimate, could be cover." They settled in to watch. Minutes crawled past. The temperature dropped. Sarah's breath fogged in front of her face. Beside her, Marcus remained perfectly still, conserving energy, conserving heat. Rex lay between them, ears swiveling at every sound. At 6:15, headlights cut through the darkness. A truck pulled into the clearing. Newer model, dark blue. 2 men got out. Sarah's blood went cold. Deputy Logan Harlan stepped into the light from the building, unmistakable even at this distance. He wore civilian clothes, jeans, and a heavy jacket, but his bearing was pure law enforcement. The second man was older, 50s, maybe thick through the middle, with a bald head that reflected the light. Sarah didn't recognize him. "You know the other one?" Marcus asked, camera clicking quietly. "No, but Logan's here. That's confirmation." They watched as Logan and the bald man shook hands, then walked to the side door. Logan produced a key. They went inside. "We need to get closer," Sarah breathed. "No." Marcus, "No, we don't know how many people are in there. We don't know the layout. We move now, we're exposed." His voice was calm but final. "We wait." Sarah wanted to argue. Every instinct screamed to move, to act, to do something, but Marcus was right. Rushing in blind would get them killed. 20 minutes passed. The door opened again. Logan and the bald man emerged, accompanied by a third figure, a woman, young, early 20s, dark hair. Her hands were bound in front of her with zip ties. She stumbled and the bald man grabbed her arm, roughly shoving her toward the van. Sarah's hand went to her Glock. "We have to—" Marcus's hand clamped over hers. "Wait, they're taking her." "I know, and we're 1 cop and 1 civilian against at least 3 armed men in unknown terrain. We move now, that woman dies, we all die, and no one ever knows what happened here." Marcus's grip tightened. "We document. We call Claire. We do this right." Sarah's vision blurred with rage and helplessness, but she stayed still. The camera kept clicking. The woman was forced into the back of the van. The bald man climbed into the driver's seat. Logan stood watching, arms folded, as the van's engine started. Then Logan pulled out his phone and made a call. The conversation was brief. He nodded, pocketed the phone, and walked back to his truck. Both vehicles drove away in opposite directions. The building went dark. Sarah realized she'd been holding her breath. She exhaled shakily. "We just watched them take someone. And now we have evidence." Marcus was already uploading photos to his phone. "Woman bound, being loaded into a van by a deputy sheriff. That's kidnapping at minimum, more likely trafficking. We need to follow them. We need to call the FBI." Sarah pulled out her phone. No signal. Too deep in the mountains. We have to move to higher ground, she said. They climbed, pushing through brush and snow, Rex leading the way. It took 15 minutes to find a ridge with 2 bars of signal. Sarah dialed Claire Donovan's direct line. It rang 4 times, then Donovan. Claire, it's Sarah Bennett. I need you to listen carefully because I'm on limited signal. Sarah's words came fast and precise. I'm in Black Ridge County, Colorado. I've been investigating my sister's disappearance and I've stumbled onto something big, human trafficking. Multiple victims over 3 years, and I have evidence that law enforcement is involved. A pause, then Claire's voice sharp with focus. What kind of evidence? Photos, video, a deputy sheriff loading a bound woman into a van 20 minutes ago. This is active, Claire, right now. Where are you exactly? Sarah gave the coordinates. But the subjects have dispersed. The woman was taken in a white Chevy van, partial plate, Whiskey Hotel 7, heading south on Route 47. I'm 3 hours away. I can have state police there in 90 minutes. No, Sarah's voice hardened. I don't know who's compromised. This could go all the way to state level. We need federal only. Another pause. Sarah could almost hear Claire thinking. Okay, I'm mobilizing a team now, but Sarah, you need to pull back. Do not engage. Do not confront anyone. Get somewhere safe and wait for us. Understood. I mean it, Sarah. You're a witness now. I need you alive to testify. I'll be careful. Sarah ended the call as the signal died. Marcus was watching her, Rex pressed against his leg. What now? Claire's coming. 3 hours. A lot can happen in 3 hours. I know. They started back down the ridge. The forest was black now, only starlight filtering through the canopy. Sarah used her flashlight sparingly, trusting Marcus to navigate. They were 50 yards from the truck when Rex stopped. Every muscle in the German shepherd's body went rigid. His hackles rose. A low, continuous growl built in his chest. Marcus's hand shot up. Stop! They froze, listening. Voices coming from the direction of the truck. Told you someone's been snooping around. Check the whole area. Probably already gone. Sarah's heart slammed against her ribs. She looked at Marcus. His expression was stone. He pointed into the forest away from the voices. Move! They went silent and fast, Rex leading them through terrain that would have been impossible without the dog's guidance. Behind them, flashlight beams swept through the tree. Spread out! They couldn't have gone far. Sarah recognized that voice. Deputy Logan Harlan. Marcus pulled them into a dense thicket, thorns catching at their clothes. They crouched low, breathing through their noses, trying to stay quiet. Footsteps crunched through snow, getting closer. Rex was a statue beside Marcus, not making a sound, but every line of his body screamed readiness. A flashlight beam swept past their position, paused, came back. Sarah's hand tightened on her Glock. The beam held steady on the thicket, searching. Then a radio crackled. Logan, we got nothing on the north side. You sure someone was here? Logan stood 10 feet from their hiding spot, so close Sarah could see his breath in the flashlight beam. Tire tracks, he said into the radio. Recent. And I found boot prints near the ridge. A pause. They were watching the building. How much could they have seen? Enough. Logan's voice went cold. Find them, alive if possible, dead if necessary. The flashlight moved away. Sarah waited until she couldn't hear footsteps anymore before she breathed. Marcus leaned close, his lips nearly touching her ear. We can't go back for the truck. They'll be watching it. Then what? We move, fast and quiet, put distance between us and them. Then we find somewhere to hide until Claire arrives. That's 3 hours of evading search parties in sub-zero temperatures. Yes, Sarah looked at him. You've done this before. More times than I'd like to remember. Marcus checked his watch. Stay close. Step where I step, and trust Rex. He'll hear them long before we do. They moved. The next 2 hours were a nightmare of cold and fear. Marcus led them on a winding route through the densest parts of the forest, avoiding roads, avoiding clearings, always moving, always listening. Rex ranged ahead, a silent scout. Twice they heard search parties. Twice they went to ground, pressing themselves into snow and darkness while men with guns walked past. Sarah's feet went numb. Her fingers ached, but she kept moving. At 8:40, Marcus found what he was looking for, a small hunting blind abandoned years ago but still intact. 4 walls of weathered plywood, a roof, and a door that barely hung on its hinges. "Inside," Marcus whispered. They crowded into the tiny space. It was barely big enough for 2 people and a large dog, but it was shelter. Marcus wedged the door shut and pulled out his phone. Still no signal. "We wait here," he said. "Claire should arrive at the sheriff's department around 9:30. Once she realizes we're not there, she'll start looking. And if Logan finds us first..." Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. Rex curled up against Sarah, sharing body heat. She wrapped her arms around the dog, grateful for the warmth. Marcus sat with his back against the wall, watching the door, listening. Minutes stretched. Sarah's mind raced. They had evidence. Photos of Logan at the trafficking site, photos of a woman being kidnapped, but if they died out here, that evidence died with them. "Marcus, yeah, thank you for not letting me do something stupid back there. You would have done the same for me." "I don't think I would have had the discipline." Marcus looked at her. "You're stronger than you think. Most people would have run the moment they found that tracker. You stayed. You fought. That takes a different kind of courage." Before Sarah could respond, Rex's head snapped up. Engine sounds. Multiple vehicles. Close. Marcus moved to the door, peering through a crack. Sarah joined him. Through the trees, headlights. 3 trucks moving slowly, searching. "They're doing a grid," Marcus breathed. "Systematic. They'll find this blind eventually." "How long?" 10 minutes. Maybe 15. Sarah checked her phone. 9:05. Claire was still 25 minutes out. "We can't stay here," she said. "No, but if we run, they'll see us." "So what do we do?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, "We split up." "What?" "Rex and I lead them away. You find high ground, get a signal, guide Claire to our position." "No, absolutely not. Sarah, I'm not letting you sacrifice yourself. I'm not sacrificing anything. Rex and I have done this before. Evade and escape. We're good at it." Marcus pulled out his phone and pressed it into her hands. "All the evidence is uploaded here. If something happens to me, you give this to Claire. You make sure those women are found." "Marcus, no. This isn't a debate." His voice was gentle but final. "You're the detective. You're the one who has to testify. I'm just some guy with a dog, expendable." "You're not expendable. To the case I am." Marcus checked his weapon, a compact 9mm Sarah hadn't even known he was carrying. "Rex and I will lead them northeast. You go west toward that cell tower we passed earlier. You should have signal there. Call Claire. Tell her where we are." Tears burned Sarah's eyes. "I can't." "Yes, you can, because if you don't, Amy stays missing. All those women stay missing, and men like Logan Harlan keep operating in the shadows." Marcus gripped her shoulder. "You're going to save them, Sarah, but first you have to save yourself." He gave Rex a hand signal. The dog stood immediately ready. Marcus looked at Sarah one more time. 3 minutes after we leave, you go. Understood?" Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. Marcus opened the door. Rex slipped out first, a shadow among shadows. Marcus followed, moving with the same deadly grace. Then they were gone. Sarah crouched in the hunting blind, counting seconds, listening to her heart hammer. Outside, the trucks were getting closer. At 2 minutes, 50 seconds, she heard it. Rex's bark, sharp, deliberate, drawing attention. Then Marcus's voice shouting, "FBI, drop your weapons!" The truck's engines roared, tires spun. They were chasing the sound. Sarah burst from the blind and ran west. She ran like her life depended on it, because it did. Ran through snow and darkness, branches tearing at her face, her lungs screaming for air. She ran until her legs felt like they would give out, until she couldn't hear the trucks anymore. Then she climbed. The cell tower was a skeletal shape against the stars. Sarah pulled herself up the ridge, fingers numb, feet slipping. At the top, she collapsed in the snow and pulled out Marcus's phone. 3 bars. She dialed Claire's number with shaking hands. "Donovan? Claire, it's Sarah!" The words came out in gasps. "We're compromised. Logan Harlan's men are hunting us in the forest east of Old Mill Road. Marcus Reed drew them off to give me time. You need to get here now." "I'm pulling up to the sheriff's department right now with 8 agents. Where exactly are you?" Sarah gave the coordinates, trying to control her breathing, trying to think like a detective instead of a terrified woman. "Stay where you are," Claire ordered. "We're coming to you. Do not move. Do not engage. Marcus and his dog are out there. We'll find them. But you need to stay put and stay alive. That's an order, Detective Bennett." The line went dead. Sarah sat in the snow, Marcus's phone clutched in her hands, staring into the darkness where he'd disappeared. And she prayed to a God she wasn't sure was listening, prayed that Marcus and Rex would survive, prayed that Claire would arrive in time, prayed that all of this suffering, all of this fear would lead to something good. The forest was silent except for the wind. Then in the distance a gunshot cracked through the night. Sarah's world stopped. Another shot, then another, then silence. She was on her feet, running back toward the sound, every ounce of training screaming at her to stop, but she wouldn't. A hand clamped over her mouth from behind. Sarah thrashed, reaching for her weapon, but strong arms pinned her. "Easy, easy, it's me, Marcus." Sarah spun, and there he was, breathing hard, bleeding from a cut above his eye, but alive. Rex limped beside him, favoring his right front leg. "You're okay," Sarah gasped. "You're okay. For now, but they're close. We need to—" Headlights exploded through the trees from 3 directions, but these weren't trucks. FBI SUVs, black and official, surrounded their position. Armed agents poured out weapons, drawn voices shouting commands. And there, stepping out of the lead vehicle, was a woman in her late 40s with dark hair pulled back and eyes that missed nothing. Special Agent Claire Donovan. She took in the scene, Sarah, Marcus, the injured dog, in a single glance. "Get them in the vehicle," she ordered, "and someone call a vet." Agents moved quickly, efficiently. Sarah found herself being guided into an SUV, a thermal blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Marcus climbed in beside her, Rex cradled in his arms. Claire slid into the front passenger seat and turned to face them. "You two have had a busy night," she said. Sarah almost laughed. Almost. Instead, she handed Claire the phone. "Everything you need is on there: photos, video, GPS coordinates. Logan Harlan is running a trafficking operation out of that building on Old Mill Road." Claire took the phone, her expression hardening as she scrolled through the images. "This is good work," she said quietly. "This is enough for warrants. Enough to move." "There's a woman," Sarah said urgently. "They took her in a white van, plate Whiskey Hotel 7, heading south on Route 47. That was 3 hours ago. If she's still alive, we'll find her." Claire's voice was iron. "I've got teams moving on 3 locations right now. The building you found, Logan Harlan's property, and the sheriff's department itself. You think the whole department is dirty? I think we're about to find out." Claire signaled the driver. The SUV started moving. "Right now, my priority is getting you two somewhere safe while my teams work. I want to be there when you arrest him," Sarah said. "That's not going to happen." "Claire, you're a witness, Sarah. The moment I bring you into an active operation, you compromise the case. You know this." Sarah did know, but knowing didn't make it easier. The SUV wound down the mountain toward the main highway. Behind them, the forest was alive with federal agents moving with purpose, closing in. Sarah looked at Marcus. He was checking Rex's injured leg with gentle hands. The dog's paw was bleeding, but not badly, a cut probably from broken glass or sharp ice. "You did good," Sarah said softly. Marcus didn't look up. "We're not done yet." No, they weren't. This was just the beginning. Outside, the night pressed close, full of secrets waiting to be uncovered. And somewhere in that darkness, 11 women were waiting to be found. The storm had passed, but the cold remained. Sarah Bennett sat in the FBI field office, a repurposed motel that smelled of burnt coffee and determination. Dawn light filtered through thin curtains as Claire Donovan coordinated 3 simultaneous operations across Black Ridge County. Marcus stood by the window watching the parking lot. Rex lay near a space heater, his injured paw wrapped in clean gauze. The dog's amber eyes tracked every movement in the room, with the focus of a soldier who understood that rest was temporary. Sarah's hands were wrapped around a mug of coffee she hadn't touched. On the laptop in front of her, live feeds from body cameras showed tactical teams approaching Logan Harlan's property through the pre-dawn darkness. "Alpha team in position," a voice crackled over the radio. "Property appears quiet, no vehicles, no exterior lights." Claire leaned toward the microphone. "Bravo team status. Perimeter secured. We have eyes on the barn and 2 outbuildings. No movement. Charlie team. Ready for breach on your command." Claire looked at Sarah. "This is it. Everything we've worked for comes down to the next 10 minutes. Sarah nodded, unable to speak. Somewhere in that house, behind locked doors and lies, were the answers she'd been searching for. Maybe Amy, maybe just more heartbreak. "All teams," Claire said, her voice calm and absolute. "You are green for entry. Execute." On the screens, agents moved with practiced precision. The battering ram swung once. The front door of Logan Harlan's home splintered inward. FBI search warrant, everyone on the ground. But the house was empty. Sarah watched as cameras swept through rooms that looked like any suburban home. Family photos on the mantel, a daughter's soccer trophy on a shelf, a son's art project on the refrigerator, the ordinary camouflage of a monster. Clear. Kitchen clear. Bedrooms clear. Basement stairs located. Proceeding down. The camera feed showed a finished basement, rec room, TV, sectional couch, normal. Then an agent called out, "Wait, there's a door here, steel reinforced, multiple locks." Sarah's breath caught. Claire's voice was sharp. "Breach it now!" The cutting torch hissed and sparked. 2 minutes that felt like hours. The locks gave way one by one. Agents pulled the door open and descended a second set of stairs. What the camera revealed turned Sarah's stomach. A concrete room, 20 feet by 20. No windows, a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. And against the far wall, huddled together like broken birds, 11 women. They ranged in age from late teens to mid-20s. Some were crying. Some stared at nothing with eyes that had seen too much. All wore the same expressions of terror and exhausted hope. "We have victims!" The team leader's voice was tight with controlled emotion. 11 females requesting immediate medical response. Claire was already moving phone to her ear, dispatching ambulances. Sarah stared at the screen, her eyes scanning each face with desperate intensity. There, sitting against the wall, thin and pale, dark hair tangled around her face, Amy. Sarah's vision blurred. Her sister was alive. 6 months of nightmares, of not knowing, of imagining the worst, and Amy was alive. "I need to go there," Sarah said. "Not yet." Claire's hand settled on her shoulder. "Let the medics stabilize them first. Give them space." "Claire." "Sarah, you'll see her, I promise, but right now those women need professionals, not family. Let us do this right." It took every ounce of Sarah's training to stay in her chair. On-screen, agents were helping the women to their feet, wrapping them in thermal blankets, speaking in low, reassuring tones. A female agent knelt beside Amy, checking her vitals, offering water. Marcus's voice was quiet beside her. "She's strong, like her sister." Sarah couldn't respond. Tears ran down her face as she watched Amy accept the water, watched her stand on shaking legs, watched her walk toward the stairs and sunlight and freedom. Another screen showed the barn. Agents had found a staging area inside. Cots lined up military style, medical supplies, a desk covered in papers. "We've got documentation," an agent reported. "Manifests, bank records, names and dates going back years." "Secure everything," Claire ordered. "I want every piece of paper cataloged." Marcus moved closer to Sarah's screen. 11 women, But the manifest mentioned 12, one still missing. Sarah's mind cleared, detective instincts cutting through emotion. The woman from last night. The van. Claire was already pulling up reports on another laptop. State police found the van abandoned. Forensics is processing it now. They transferred her, Marcus said. Van was a decoy. They moved her to a second vehicle. Claire's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her expression sharpened. When? How many units? A pause. I'm on my way. She turned to Sarah and Marcus. Logan Harlan just walked into the sheriff's department. He's armed and demanding to speak with whoever's in charge of the investigation. It's a trap, Sarah said. Maybe. Or he's desperate and making mistakes. Claire grabbed her jacket. Either way, I'm not letting him control this narrative. Stay here. Monitor the medical response. Make sure those women get everything they need. I'm coming with you, Sarah said. Absolutely not. He took my sister. I have a right. You have a right to testify at his trial. You do not have a right to compromise this case by being anywhere near an active arrest situation. Claire's voice softened. Amy needs you alive and whole, not dead or arrested for obstruction. Stay here. Sarah wanted to argue, but Claire was already gone. Marcus watched the convoy of FBI vehicles pull out of the parking lot. She's walking into a confrontation with a man who has nothing left to lose. I know. We could follow. Keep our distance, just in case. Sarah looked at the screens showing the medical response. Paramedics were loading the 11 women into ambulances. Amy was in the second vehicle, an EMT checking her blood pressure, speaking to her in calm tones. Her sister was safe. Finally, after 6 months, Amy was safe. But one woman was still missing, and Logan Harlan was making his last stand. Let's go, Sarah said. Rex stood before Marcus even gave the command. The dog's limp was barely noticeable now. He moved to the door and waited ready. They took Marcus's truck, staying 2 minutes behind the FBI convoy. The drive into Blackridge took 12 minutes. As they approached Main Street, Sarah could see the tactical response already in place. FBI vehicles blocked both ends of the street. Agents in body armor had established a perimeter. Civilians were being moved back. Shop owners watching from doorways with confused, frightened expressions. Through the glass door of the sheriff's department, Sarah could see Logan Harlan standing in the center of the bullpen. His service weapon was drawn but pointed at the floor. His face was pale, his movements jerky with adrenaline or fear. Sheriff Thomas Reed stood to one side, hands visible, looking 10 years older than he had 2 days ago. Claire Donovan stood just inside the door, her own weapon holstered, hands open and calming. Sarah and Marcus approached the perimeter. An agent moved to stop them, but Sarah flashed her badge. Detective Bennett, I'm consulting on this case. The agent hesitated, then stepped aside. Stay behind the line. Sarah got close enough to hear voices through the door. It's over, Logan. Claire's voice was steady, professional. We found them, all 11 women in your basement. We found your records, your money, everything. Logan's laugh was sharp and broken. You think this is everything? You think I'm the only one? I know you're not, which is why you should cooperate. Tell me who else is involved. Help me dismantle this network. It's your only way out. There is no way out. Logan's voice cracked. You don't understand. This goes beyond me, beyond Blackridge. You arrest me, someone else takes over. You shut down one operation, 3 more pop up. This is too big to stop. Then help me try. Logan shook his head. I didn't want this. You understand, I didn't wake up one day and decide to be a monster. It started small. One favor, one delivery, just helping out. The money was good, my wife needed surgery, my daughter needed braces, and they promised it was victimless, just transporting, just logistics. You were trafficking human beings. I was surviving. The weapon trembled in Logan's hand. Do you know what it's like? Being a cop in a town that can't afford to pay you. Watching your family struggle while criminals get rich. The system failed me long before I failed it. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. Every word was a justification. Every sentence was an excuse. Men like Logan always had reasons. They always believed their suffering mattered more than the suffering they caused. Claire took a small step forward. Put down the weapon. Let's end this without more violence. You can still do the right thing. The right thing, Logan repeated. You want the right thing, fine. The woman you're looking for, the one from last night, she's not in the van. They transferred her to a black sedan, license plate Colorado Tango Delta 497. She's being moved to a truck stop outside Boulder. Transfer happens at 6 a.m. You've got 90 minutes if you want her alive. Claire pulled out her phone, already relaying the information to her team. There, Logan said. I did the right thing. Now what? You give me a medal, reduce my sentence, I still go to prison. My family still loses everything. My kids still grow up knowing their father is a monster. Your kids grow up knowing you tried to make it right at the end. That counts for something. Does it? Logan's weapons started to not pointing at Claire, not pointing at anyone, just rising. And in that moment, Sarah saw it happen. The window behind Logan exploded inward. Glass shattered. The crack of a rifle shot echoed down Main Street. Logan stumbled, blood blooming across his shoulder. His weapon clattered to the floor as he fell. Agents swarmed in from every direction. Claire was on her radio shouting orders. Sheriff Reed backed against the wall, hands up, shouting that he had nothing to do with this. Sarah ran toward the building, but Marcus caught her arm. Sniper! Roof across the street! Stay down! FBI tactical teams flooded the surrounding buildings. Sarah crouched behind a parked car, watching as medics rushed into the sheriff's department to work on Logan. 10 minutes later, Claire emerged, her expression thunderous. Shooter's gone. Found the position. Long-range rifle, professional setup. They knew exactly what they were doing. Who? Sarah demanded. We're working on it. But whoever it was, they wanted Logan silenced before he could say more. Claire looked at her phone. My team's en route to the truck stop. If Logan was telling the truth, we have an hour to find that woman. I'm coming. Sarah, I'm coming. Claire studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Get in. They drove in a convoy of 3 vehicles, lights, flashing sirens, wailing. The truck stop was 40 miles south, just over the county line. FBI tactical teams were already in position when they arrived, watching from a distance. At 6:04 a.m., a black sedan pulled into the lot. License plate Tango Delta 497. 2 men got out. Sarah recognized one from Marcus's photos. The bald man from the building. The other was younger, nervous, constantly checking his phone. The sedan's trunk opened. A woman climbed out, early 20s, blonde. Her hands were zip-tied in front of her. She looked exhausted but alert, scanning for escape routes even in her fear. The bald man grabbed her arm. All units move in, Claire commanded. FBI agents appeared from every direction. The 2 men barely had time to react before they were on the ground, weapons drawn, voices shouting commands. The woman dropped to her knees, hands over her head. A scream caught in her throat. You're safe, a female agent was saying, kneeling beside her. FBI, you're safe now. It's over. It took several minutes for the words to penetrate, for the woman to understand that the nightmare had ended. When she did, she collapsed against the agent and sobbed. Sarah watched from the SUV, feeling something unlock in her chest. 12 women. 12 women who would go home. Claire returned to the vehicle as the suspects were loaded into transport. That's all of them. Everyone on the manifest is accounted for. What about the others? Sarah asked. Logan said this operation goes beyond Black Ridge. We found shipping records in his barn. Dates, locations, names. Claire's eyes were hard. This network spans 3 states. We're talking about 47 women sold over 8 years. 12 recovered here. The other 35 are still out there, and we're going to find every single one. How many people are involved? At least 14 law enforcement officers across Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana, plus another dozen civilian accomplices. Money was being funneled through offshore accounts. Political contributions were made to protect the operation. Claire's jaw set. This goes high, Sarah. Higher than we initially thought. The sniper. We're working on it, But my best guess, someone in a position of power who couldn't afford to let Logan talk. The drive back to Blackridge felt longer than it was. Sarah's exhaustion was catching up, adrenaline crashing hard. But there was one thing she needed to do first. The hospital was a small county facility overwhelmed by the sudden influx of 12 traumatized women. Federal victim advocates had arrived along with doctors and trauma counselors. The FBI had secured an entire wing for privacy and protection. Claire walked Sarah to Amy's room. 2 agents stood outside the door. 20 minutes, Claire said quietly. Then she needs rest. Sarah nodded and pushed through the door. Amy was in the bed closest to the window, an IV and her arm monitors beeping softly. She looked so small against the white sheets, so fragile. But when she saw Sarah, her eyes filled with tears. Sarah. Sarah crossed the room and pulled her sister into her arms, careful of the IV, of the bruises, of everything broken that needed time to heal. "I'm here," Sarah whispered. "I'm here. You're safe now." Amy sobbed against her shoulder. "I thought I'd never see you again. I know, but you did. You're here. You're alive. And I swear to you, the people who did this will pay." They held each other while the morning sun climbed higher, while nurses moved quietly in the hallway, while the world outside continued its normal rhythms, indifferent to suffering and salvation alike. When Amy finally pulled back, her voice was small. "There were others in that room. I don't know their names, but we took care of each other. We survived together." "I know. They're all here, all safe. What happens to us now?" Sarah brushed hair from Amy's face. "You heal. You take all the time you need, and when you're ready, you come home." "Will it ever stop hurting?" Sarah wanted to lie, wanted to promise that the nightmares would end, that the fear would fade, that life would return to normal. But Amy deserved truth. "I don't know," Sarah said, "but I'll be with you every step of the way, I promise." Amy nodded and closed her eyes, exhausted. Sarah sat beside the bed, holding her sister's hand, watching her breathe. Alive. Amy was alive. And that was enough. 2 days later, Sarah stood in a small ranch house on the outskirts of Blackridge. Sheriff Thomas Reed sat across from her at a kitchen table scarred by years of use. He looked like he'd aged a decade in 2 days. His uniform hung loose on his frame. His hands shook when he poured coffee. "I should have seen it," Reed said. His voice was hollow. 15 years. I worked with Logan for 15 years. Trusted him. Promoted him. Called him a friend. Sarah said nothing. She'd come because Claire had asked her to, because Reed claimed he had information. But forgiveness wasn't something she was prepared to offer. "I ignored the signs," Reed continued. "Women going missing. Investigations that went nowhere. Logan always had explanations, always had reasons why we couldn't pursue certain leads." He looked at Sarah with red-rimmed eyes. "I trusted him more than I trusted my own instincts. And 11 women paid the price for my blindness." 12, Sarah corrected quietly. "We found one more." Reed's face crumpled. "My wife wants me to fight this. Says I didn't know, didn't participate, didn't deserve to lose my pension. But she's wrong. I enabled this, by trusting blindly, by not asking the hard questions, by choosing comfort over truth." "Why did you want to see me?" Reed stood and retrieved a box from the counter. Inside were files, personnel records, duty rosters, internal memos. "Everything I have on the department. Who was on duty when women disappeared, who filed reports, who conducted investigations, who had access to evidence." He pushed the box toward Sarah. "I can't undo what happened, but I can help you build a case against everyone who was involved, everyone who looked the other way." Sarah pulled the box toward her. "This doesn't make you innocent." "I know, but maybe it makes me less guilty." Reed's voice broke. "Those women deserved better. Their families deserved better. This town deserved better, and I failed all of them." Sarah stood. "The FBI will want to interview you, officially, on the record." "I'll tell them everything." Sarah paused at the door. "Sheriff, why did you trust Logan so completely?" Reed was quiet for a long moment. Because he reminded me of myself when I was young, dedicated, hardworking, believed in justice. His laugh was bitter. Turns out I didn't know myself as well as I thought. Sarah left with the box and didn't look back. At the FBI field office, Claire's team had been working around the clock. The conference room was covered in charts and timelines, photos of suspects, maps marked with locations. Claire looked up when Sarah entered. We've made arrests across 3 states, 14 law enforcement officers in custody, another 8 civilians. Bank records show $2.3 million in transactions over 8 years. And the women, the 35 still missing? We're using the manifest to trace them. So far we've located 7. They're alive, being held in similar operations in Wyoming and Montana. FBI teams are coordinating rescues now. Claire pulled up a map on her laptop. The others, we're still looking, but we won't stop until we find them all. Sarah set down Reed's box. Sheriff Reed gave me this. Internal department records might help connect dots. I'll have my team go through it. Claire studied Sarah. How's Amy? Physically stable, emotionally, it's going to take time. The other victims are asking about her. They want to see each other, support each other. We're arranging a group session with trauma counselors tomorrow. Sarah nodded. The 11 women had survived together. It made sense they'd heal together. Marcus entered the room, Rex at his side. The dog moved directly to Sarah and pressed against her leg. She rested a hand on his head, grateful for the solid warmth. Logan's awake, Marcus said. Refusing to talk, lawyered up. Doesn't matter, Claire said. We have enough evidence to convict him 10 times over. The manifests, the bank records, the victims' testimonies, he's going to prison for the rest of his life. What about the shooter? Claire's expression darkened. We found the rifle, ballistics match, but no prints, no witnesses, professional hit, meant to silence Logan before he could implicate whoever hired him. You have theories. More than theories, the money trail leads to a series of shell corporations. We're tracing ownership now, but one name keeps appearing in the background, State Senator Richard Walsh. Sarah felt her blood go cold. And State Senator, 20 years in office, powerful connections, sits on Judiciary and Appropriations Committees. Claire pulled up a photo, a man in his 60s, silver hair, expensive suit, politician's smile. If he's involved, this goes beyond trafficking. This is corruption at the state level, protection for criminal enterprises in exchange for money and political support. Can you prove it? We're building the case, but men like Walsh don't go down easy. They have resources, lawyers, influence. Claire's jaw set, but we're going to try. Sarah looked at the photo of Senator Walsh, at his practiced smile, at the face of a man who'd built a career on public trust while enabling private horrors. What do you need from me? Testimony, at trial. You're the detective who broke this open. Your word carries weight. Claire met her eyes. But Sarah, if Walsh is involved, he's going to come after you, discredit you, make you the villain. Are you prepared for that? Sarah thought of Amy, of the 12 women who'd survived, of the 35 still missing, of the families who deserved answers. Yes, she said simply. Claire nodded. Then let's finish this. The truck stop arrests had yielded results. The bald man, whose name was Vincent Caruso, broke after 6 hours of interrogation. He'd been trafficking women for Logan's network for 5 years. He provided names, locations, details of how the operation worked. The younger man, Danny Torres, was a small-time criminal recruited as a driver. He knew less but confirmed what Caruso said. Both men agreed to testify in exchange for reduced sentences. With their cooperation, the FBI was able to map the entire network. 6 major hubs across 3 states, 14 officers providing protection and intelligence, 12 civilians handling logistics and transport, and at the center a web of shell corporations funneling money upward to Senator Richard Walsh. The arrest came 3 days later. FBI agents took Walsh into custody at his Denver office. News cameras caught him being led out in handcuffs, his face pale, his expensive suit rumpled. The charges were extensive: racketeering, conspiracy to commit human trafficking, money laundering, corruption. Walsh's lawyer immediately claimed innocence. said his client was being targeted for political reasons, that the evidence was circumstantial. But the evidence wasn't circumstantial. Bank records showed Walsh had received over $1 million from the network's shell corporations over 8 years. Phone records placed him in contact with Logan Harlan dozens of times. And Vincent Caruso, in exchange for his plea deal, testified that Walsh had personally ordered Logan's assassination to prevent him from talking. The case was airtight. Sarah watched the news coverage from the hospital sitting beside Amy's bed. Her sister was stronger now, eating solid food, walking short distances. The physical wounds were healing. The emotional ones would take longer. "Is it really over?" Amy asked, watching Senator Walsh's perp walk on the television. "The arrests are done. The trials will take years, but yes, the people who did this are in custody." "All of them?" Sarah hesitated. "Everyone we could find, but there might be others, people who were careful, people who covered their tracks." Amy was quiet for a moment. "The girl in the room with me. Her name was Melissa. She'd been there for 2 years, 2 years, Sarah. She'd given up hope, stopped believing anyone was coming." Amy's voice shook. "How many others are like her, still waiting, still hoping?" "I don't know, but we're looking, and we won't stop." Amy nodded. "Good." On the television, the news anchor was reporting that 7 additional victims had been recovered in coordinated raids across Wyoming and Montana. Families were being reunited. Women were getting medical care. The number was up to 19 now. 19 women who'd been found alive, 28 still missing. Sarah made a silent promise to each of those 28 names. They would be found, one by one, no matter how long it took. 6 months later, Sarah stood in front of a small office building in downtown Blackridge. The sign above the door read, "Mountain States Human Trafficking Task Force." She'd been promoted to detective sergeant and given command of a federal-state partnership dedicated to investigating trafficking across the Rocky Mountain region. The FBI provided funding and resources. State and local agencies provided personnel and jurisdiction. Claire Donovan served as the federal liaison. Sheriff Reed, stripped of his badge but not his knowledge, worked as a civilian consultant, using his decades of law enforcement experience to help build cases. Marcus Reed had been contracted as a tactical advisor. He taught officers how to conduct high-risk extractions, how to read terrain, how to stay alive in dangerous situations. And Rex had been certified as an official K-9 for the task force specialized in victim recovery and search operations. Sarah unlocked the office and stepped inside. The space was small but functional. Desks, computers, whiteboards covered in case information, photos of missing women arranged in careful rows. Some of those photos had red borders now. Recovered, alive, 19 women in 6 months. But the wall still showed more without borders than with. Amy entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. She looked healthier now. She'd gained weight. Her hair was cut and styled. She smiled more often. But Sarah could still see the shadows in her eyes, the way she checked exits when entering a room, the way she tensed at unexpected sounds. Trauma didn't disappear. It just learned to coexist with healing. "Big day," Amy said, handing Sarah a cup. "First official case briefing with the full team. I'm nervous." "You'll be great. You always are." The team began arriving at 8 a.m. 6 detectives from various departments, 3 FBI analysts, 2 victim advocates, Marcus and Rex. Sarah stood at the head of the conference table and felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. "Thank you all for being here," she began. "6 months ago, we didn't exist. Today, we're a fully operational task force with the resources and jurisdiction to investigate human trafficking across 4 states. We've recovered 19 victims, made 83 arrests, dismantled 6 major networks, but our work is far from done." She pulled up a map on the screen. Red dots marked known trafficking hubs, yellow dots marked suspected locations. "We currently have 28 women still missing from the Blackridge network alone. Across the region, we're tracking over 100 active cases. Some of these women have been missing for years. Some disappeared last week. All of them deserve to be found." Sarah clicked to the next slide, a new case file. This morning we received a report from Bozeman, Montana. 3 women aged 19 to 23 disappeared over the past 6 weeks. Local police suspect trafficking but lack the resources to investigate properly. That's where we come in. She outlined the case, the victims, the timeline, the preliminary evidence. Marcus will conduct tactical assessment. FBI will handle warrants and coordination. Local detectives will work interviews and evidence gathering. We move as one team, we communicate constantly, and we don't stop until we bring them home. The team nodded, already taking notes, already planning. Claire stood. I want to add something. The Black Ridge case proved that trafficking networks often have protection from corrupt officials. As we investigate, we need to be aware that we might encounter resistance, not just from criminals, but from people in positions of power. Stay alert, trust your instincts, and if something feels wrong, it probably is. The briefing continued for another hour. Assignments were given. Timelines were established. Resources were allocated. By 10 a.m., the team was mobilizing for Montana. Sarah walked out to the parking lot with Marcus. Rex trotted between them, his gait smooth now, the limp completely healed. You ready for this? Marcus asked. I don't know if anyone's ever ready for this kind of work, but I'm willing. That's all we can ask. Sarah looked back at the office building, at the sign that represented hope and justice and the refusal to give up. Marcus, thank you for everything, for helping when you didn't have to, for teaching me that strength isn't about violence, for showing me what real courage looks like. Marcus shrugged, uncomfortable with praise. You did the hard part, I just provided backup. We helped each other. That's what makes this work. Rex woofed softly as if agreeing. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Claire, major development. Call me. She dialed immediately. Claire, what's wrong? Not wrong, big. We've been analyzing the encrypted files from Logan's computer. The ones our tech team finally cracked last week. And, Sarah, this operation wasn't just Logan's network. It was a franchise model, a blueprint that was sold and replicated across multiple states. We're finding evidence of identical operations in Idaho, Nevada, Utah, Oregon, and Washington. Sarah's blood ran cold. How many victims are we talking about? Conservative estimate over 200, spread across 6 states, operating independently but using the same methods, the same infrastructure, the same protection models. Who's running it? That's what we're trying to figure out. But whoever created this system, they built something that could survive the loss of any single node. Take down Logan, 5 more operations, keep running. It's designed for resilience. Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the enormity of it settle over her like a physical weight. 200 women, 200 families, 200 lives stolen. What do we do? She asked quietly. What we've been doing. We keep fighting, we find them one by one, we dismantle the networks piece by piece, we don't stop. Claire's voice was iron. This is going to take years, Sarah, maybe decades, but we're going to finish it. Sarah looked at Marcus, at Rex, at the office building behind her where good people were preparing to fight an impossible fight. Then we better get started, she said. She ended the call and stood in the parking lot watching clouds move across the mountains. Somewhere in those mountains, in cities and towns scattered across 6 states, women were waiting. Some knew help was coming. Some had given up hope. All deserved to be found. Sarah thought about the path that had brought her here, about Amy's disappearance, about the GPS tracker that had started everything, about Marcus and Rex appearing at exactly the right moment, about 11 women in a basement who'd survived because they'd refused to break. She thought about Sheriff Reed carrying the weight of his failures and trying to atone, about Claire Donovan fighting corruption at the highest levels, about ordinary people choosing to stand against darkness, and she understood something fundamental. Evil existed. It would always exist. Men like Logan Harlan would always find justifications for cruelty. Systems would always protect the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. But goodness existed too. People who refused to look away, who chose compassion over comfort, who fought not because victory was guaranteed, but because the fight itself mattered. Marcus's voice broke through her thoughts. You okay? Sarah nodded. Yeah, I am. We've got a long road ahead. I know. 200 victims, 6 states, networks we haven't even identified yet. I know. Marcus studied her face. So why are you smiling? Sarah looked at him, at this quiet man who'd come to the mountains seeking peace and instead found purpose. At Rex, a dog who'd given everything in service to something larger than himself. At the impossible task ahead of them. Because for the first time in my life, I understand what I'm supposed to do, not just as a cop, as a person. She gestured toward the office. This isn't just a job, it's a calling, and I'm ready for it. Marcus smiled faintly. Then let's get to work. They walked back toward the building together. Rex led the way tail high, ready for whatever came next. Inside, the team was gathering equipment, reviewing maps, preparing for the Montana operation. Amy was making copies of case files. Claire was coordinating with FBI offices across multiple states. Everyone working toward the same goal: finding the lost, saving the broken, bringing light to the darkest places. Sarah took her seat at the conference table and pulled up the Montana case file. 3 women missing, 3 families waiting for answers, 3 lives that mattered just as much as Amy's, as Melissa's, as all the others. All right, she said, looking around the table. Let's bring them home. The team leaned in, focused and determined, and the work began. Not with fanfare or speeches, not with guarantees or certainty, but with the quiet determination of ordinary people refusing to accept that evil should win. One case at a time, one victim at a time, one choice at a time to stand and fight. Because that's what heroes do, not because they're fearless, but because they care more about others than they fear the cost. And Sarah Bennett, sitting in a small office in a forgotten mountain town, surrounded by people who'd chosen the same impossible fight, understood that this was exactly where she was meant to be. The mission stretched ahead, endless and daunting. But for the first time in her life, Sarah wasn't afraid. She was ready.